Your income is increasing, but your control over money is quietly shrinking. The cause isn't your spending. It isn't inflation alone. It's the structure your income depends on. A salary feels like stability. It arrives on schedule. It grows with promotions. It signals progress. For most people, it represents security. The idea that as long as you perform, your financial life remains intact. That belief feels rational because it has worked before. It rewards discipline, consistency, and effort. It appears predictable, but that predictability hides something else. The same structure that stabilizes your income also limits how it behaves over time. You start to notice small things first. Your income increases, but your flexibility doesn't. More money comes in, yet your options don't expand at the same pace. The visible effect is subtle. You feel slightly ahead, but not free. Slightly secure, but still dependent. The gap between earning more and feeling in control begins to widen. Behind that, an invisible mechanism is operating. A salary is not an asset. It is a controlled stream tied to time, performance, and external approval. It scales linearly. More effort produces more income, but only within boundaries. Those boundaries are rarely obvious because they expand slowly. A raise feels like growth, but it is still confined within the same structure. The system rewards continuation, not escape. That leads to a behavioral trap. As income increases, behavior adjusts to match it. Expenses rise, expectations expand, and commitments become fixed. What feels like improvement quietly reinforces dependence. The higher the salary, the more the system relies on it. The structure tightens, not loosens. Progress becomes maintenance. Over time, this turns into structural lock-in. The income you depend on becomes harder to replace. Not because it's large, but because your life has adapted around it. Fixed costs grow. Time becomes less flexible. Risk tolerance shrinks. The system doesn't need to trap you directly. It simply aligns your life so that leaving becomes increasingly difficult. This is where the contradiction becomes visible. Working more should create freedom, but it often creates obligation. Earning more should increase control, but it often increases exposure. The system is not failing. It is operating exactly as designed. It converts effort into income, but not into independence. Most people respond by leaning further into the same structure. They save more. They work harder. They seek promotions. Each action feels responsible. Each decision appears correct. But the underlying dynamic does not change. The income source remains singular. The dependence remains intact. The system continues to convert time into money and money back into obligation. This is where the identity collision begins. You follow financial advice. You build a career. You avoid unnecessary risk. You prioritize stability. These are not mistakes. They are aligned behaviors within the system. But alignment has a cost. It keeps you functioning inside a structure that was never designed to create autonomy on its own. You begin to recognize patterns. People earning high salaries still feel constrained. Their income grows, but their time does not. Their responsibilities expand alongside their earnings. The system rewards them with more income, but also with more structure, more expectations, more dependence. The trade-off becomes clearer, but harder to reverse. There is another layer beneath this. Time interacts with income differently depending on its structure. A salary resets constantly. Each month starts from zero. Each year depends on continuation. It does not accumulate in a way that builds independent momentum. The effort required to sustain it never fully disappears. The system demands ongoing participation. This creates a second contradiction. Income is high, but momentum is low. Progress requires repetition. The system does not store effort in a way that compounds into freedom. It stores it in a way that maintains stability. Stability becomes the goal, even when it quietly replaces growth. You begin to see the pattern across different income levels. It does not matter whether someone earns $50,000 or $200,000. The structure behaves the same. The scale changes, but the dependency remains. Higher income delays the pressure. but does not remove it. It often intensifies it. This is why wealth feels distant, even when income is strong. The system is not designed to convert earnings into independence automatically. It requires something else, something that behaves differently over time. But most people never fully separate these two dynamics. They treat income and wealth as extensions of the same process, when they are governed by different rules. The longer this continues, the more the cost becomes irreversible. Time passes within the same structure. Years of effort are exchanged for income, but not necessarily for leverage. The opportunity to shift structures becomes narrower, not because it disappears, but because the cost of changing increases. You don't notice the shift immediately, it happens gradually. Your ability to tolerate uncertainty decreases. Your obligations become less flexible. Your financial decisions become more constrained. The system does not need to restrict you directly. It allows your own stability to do it. This is the point where recognition becomes unavoidable. The path you are on is consistent, but not necessarily transformative. It maintains your financial life, but does not fundamentally change its structure. The income continues, but so does the dependence. There is a quiet realization here. Salary alone does not fail because it is insufficient. It fails because of how it behaves over time. It is linear in a system that rewards accumulation. It is controlled in a system that values autonomy. It is temporary in a system where permanence creates leverage. The cost is not visible in a single moment. It accumulates through repetition, through years spent reinforcing the same structure, through decisions that feel correct but align with dependence. The system does not resist you, it simply continues. At some point, the numbers stop being the focus. The structure becomes the focus. You begin to see that income is not just about how much you earn, but how it behaves when you stop. Whether it continues, whether it compounds, whether it exists independently of your time. This is where the idea of wealth separates from income. Not in scale, but in behavior. One requires constant input. The other changes what happens when input stops. The difference is not obvious in the beginning. It becomes visible only after time has already shaped the outcome. By then, the system has already done its work. Years have passed within a structure that felt stable, logical, and responsible. The results reflect that structure, not the effort alone. Effort was never the limiting factor. The design was. And once that becomes clear, the question is no longer how much you earn. It becomes what your income is quietly building, and whether it was ever building anything at all. If you're interested in how money, incentives, and behavior really interact, you may want to follow Finance Simplified.